Hi, my name is Lass King, and I'm here to tell you today about my breastfeeding discrimination case. The incident that caused this whole thing happened in August of 2006. It happened in New York City, Manhattan, on 33rd and 5th Avenue at the Fossil Showroom, right across the street from Empire State Building. It became a case in February of 2007, and it was settled in July of 2007. Time I was working as a manager and a buyer of a boutique. I would go to what would be called shows and showrooms and buy merchandise for the store several times a year. The time when I usually would go and purchase things for the end of summer and fall would be the end of May, but I was due at the end of May with my second child, and so I couldn't go, and so my child was born on June 2nd, and I instead went on this buying trip in the beginning of August on my maternity leave. I took time out of my maternity leave to go on this buying trip so that I could, complete my job. And I brought my baby with me. It was the last day of my trip. I was at the Fossil Showroom, and I nursed my child when I first got there. Sat right in the lobby. Anybody could have seen me. I was, discreet. My sales rep came. It happened to be when I was done, which was perfect, and we went on and worked, but an infant eats fairly often, so I ended up about 2.5 hours later, it was time for my child to eat again. And so my sales rep asked me if I wouldn't like to sit kind of facing a corner and with my back to the room, because there's lots of other people there working that day, and she would bring me merchandise and hold it up in front of me, and that way I could say yes or no, I like that, I don't like that, and I wouldn't have to worry about other people seeing me or whatever. I could just have a little privacy. And I said, sure, that would be great. So we began. I got myself comfortable. I'm feeding my child, and this assistant comes up to me and says, wouldn't you be more comfortable feeding your child in the bathroom? And I'd already scoped out the bathroom, and in the bathroom was a cement kind of bench. Not comfortable. And I said, no, I'm comfortable here, thank you. This chair has arms on it, it has, it's cushioned, this is comfy, thank you. 2 or 3 minutes later, the manager of the showroom comes up to me and says, wouldn't you be more comfortable feeding your child in the bathroom? And I was a little annoyed, and I said, no, I'm comfortable right here, thank you very much. Another minute or two later, and he said, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. What? You nursing your child here is upsetting some of the other people who are working. I was shocked. I couldn't believe that I was really being asked to leave somewhere for feeding my child, especially somewhere that I was working. At different points, I had been told that the store that I worked for was a valuable customer to Fossil, that we sold the most of any boutique in the Northeast. So I felt like we spent a good amount of money there. I, started putting my child in the stroller. My child starts getting upset. Like, this is now disruptive. I start getting frustrated and flustered, both because my child is upset, I'm having to pick up my stuff, I'm being asked to leave somewhere. None of this makes any sense to me. I even start to kind of well up with tears. And finally I said to my sales rep, can you get the manager back over here? And she said, okay. And she brings him back over. And I said, don't you have another place that I could go and nurse my child besides the bathroom? Like, there's got to be somewhere that's more comfortable than the bathroom. You know what? There actually is a boardroom upstairs. There's comfortable chairs up there. You could go up there. And I said, great. I'm more than happy to bring my child up there. So we get in the elevator, we go upstairs, I nurse, he leaves for a little while, then he comes back up and he keeps me company and we're talking. He has 3 kids, his wife nursed all 3 of his children. He thinks this is a little silly. The whole problem is that there's another group of people there, buyers for a large chain who is buying for an entire group of stores for the whole Western United States. So they're spending a lot more money than me. So now I'm upstairs and I'm feeding my child, and when we're done, I think it's interesting that he's sitting there with me, talking to me, but I don't feel uncomfortable. I finish. I said, what time does the showroom close? So I can finish my work. I have a plane to catch later that night. I've got an hour and a half left that I can work. Okay, great. I can go down and finish my work because, what's the other thing that's going on for me in all this frustration is that I'm here, I'm have my child, I'm being told that I can't do my work, and part of this is that I have this fear because I can't do my job because I'm a mother. So he says to me, you can't go back down there. What? And he said, well, I said, there's time left, we're done nursing. I can go back down there, we can finish what we started. And he said, well, actually, those other people are still down there and they don't want to see you and your child. What? And he said, well, just the sight of you that you did nurse, them knowing that you did nurse is too upsetting for them. And we can't allow you back down there. The fact that my child did eat and ate something that came from my body is too much for these people to handle, and I'm not being allowed to go back down in the showroom. And so I have to leave, having not finished my job. I felt nervous to go home. I don't know what my boss is going to say. I feel humiliated. I take pride in being able to do my job well. I was happy to take time out of my maternity leave to go and do my job because I enjoy my job. So when I got back, I was not in trouble. My boss was great. I told some people about my experience and how I felt. People could hear me and express sympathy, but I don't think anybody could really grasp, maybe because I couldn't even express how I really felt. I wasn't even sure that I had a right to feel how I felt. The only thing that I knew for sure was that my child was hungry and somebody was telling me that it wasn't okay for me to feed my child, that it was somehow wrong to feed my child. I felt humiliated and ashamed, like somehow I had done something wrong when I knew that wasn't true. It was just mother's instinct that told me that what I did was not wrong, but I wasn't finding any validation. I needed somebody to say, you were right, and say it strongly. The first person that said that to me was my stepmother. She had breastfed my 2 brothers. She heard my story. She could empathize. She suggested I get a hold of 2 different places. One was the Leche League, and one was the ACLU of Maine. And she happened to know somebody who is the head of the ACLU in Maine. She gave me that person's name, who is Shenna Bellows. And the first place that I called was the Leche League. The person I spoke to there, her name is Carlene Wright, and she was amazing. Years later, I would meet her, and she is an amazing woman, and she has been running the Leche League in Hancock County, I think, for 40 years, supporting women just a superwoman, really, really amazing woman. She totally validated everything that I did, that I felt. And she also said, yes, you absolutely had a right to do what you were doing. You were 100% in the right, and you should absolutely follow your stepmother's suggestion. Contact the ACLU. I did end up doing that. It took more courage to do that. When I finally did, they told me that they couldn't help me, but that I should contact the one in New York. When I did, they had a breastfeeding coalition, meaning that they had a team of lawyers who were already put together, who were working on breastfeeding rights already before I called them, because I was not the first breastfeeding case to come up. I was the second breastfeeding case ever to be settled. So there's a team of lawyers already put together, and it's amazing. I was shocked. There's an awareness that it's not okay to treat people like this, like children's rights, women's rights, nursing mothers' rights are human rights. There's a meme that I saw that said something like, you're allowed to go topless in 4 states. Plan your next vacation wisely. And it lists the 4 states, and they are New York, Hawaii, Vermont, and Maine. And the reason why you're allowed to go topless in those 4 states is because it's to protect women's right to nurse their children. And the whole reason why you're allowed to go topless is because they can't legislate the breast. So congressmen and senators have talked about how much of the breast is okay to be shown. If you were in a public place and someone were to spot part of your breast, how much of it would be obscene? The top quarter of your breast, part of your nipple, like if your nipple slips out of your child's mouth, the blanket slips off their head, like how much of that would be obscene? And if it happened, could you be arrested? So I think it's amazing that people are talking about this and think that it's important. They're saying, no, you can't legislate the breast. You can't say how a child eats. You just have to let them eat. You have to let them do this natural, organic thing. Period. You know, this organic process happened, and there were all of these people who gave me courage along the way, told me that I did a good thing. When I got to the ACLU in New York, the person who I was in touch with, my lawyer, her name was Galen Sherwin, and she was amazing. I call her my angel because she was totally, a sister. There was some communicating that happened with the Fossil Corporation before it actually became a case. During that time, there were people who would try to call me at the store that I worked at, the Grasshopper Shop, and they would misrepresent themselves. So now the Fossil Corporation has a team of lawyers who are working because they're afraid of me, this nursing mother, because they have a lot of money. They're afraid of what I'm going to do. So they would call me at my work, this happened several times, and misrepresent themselves about who they were and what they wanted, but they would ask me questions about what happened, or I can hardly remember it because it's long ago enough, but I remember them like these moles calling me and asking me questions about the incident. Strange. And I would talk to Galen and I would tell her what happened, and she would be like, oh yeah, that's somebody from Fossil calling you and trying to get you to either admit to, own, change your story, or whatever. Like, really? You're paying some big shot lawyer, whatever, $300 an hour to call this little mother in Maine and try to get her to change her story? Or, like, blows my mind. They thought that I wanted money. I didn't want money. I did get some money. I got $3,600, which, was nice. But they wanted me to have a gag order on this whole thing. And that's the one thing that I wouldn't do, because my whole reason for doing this was to be able to speak out and say, you know, the more that day in the showroom, what I felt like was that my hands were tied. I felt like I was being told that I couldn't do what I needed to do. And what I really feel like that I need to do is that I need to be vocal about what's important. This issue is really important to me. We did end up settling this case, and I settled on July 3rd of 2007. It was page 6 of the New York Times. That's what I really wanted, was to get the word out. You know, I want to be able to speak about this topic. Anytime somebody posts a breastfeeding meme or whatever on Facebook, I feel like breastfeeding gets exposure. The more that we talk about it, the more normalized it gets. So that's what I want. I want a platform to talk about it. So this is perfect. I was interviewed by the Reuters news organization, and I had a friend who I knew from when I lived in California, and she now lives out of the country, and she found me because she read the news article written by Reuters in some other publication besides the New York Times, and she found me at the store where I worked. So I know that my word got out there because she found me internationally after being interviewed by them. That's all that I wanted. I didn't even know that I wanted to become a mother. And once I figured out that I wanted to become a mother, I didn't know if I'd get that gift, because I became a mother later in life. By the time that I became a mother, I had this job that I loved. You know, it was my dream job. To figure out how to be a mom and do your job is not that easy. And I had a boss who was great. My boss, you know, allowed me for the first months of both of my children's life I had a daycare that was close to my work, and I would leave, they'd call me when my children woke up from their naps, and I would leave my work and I would go up there and I would nurse every time my child woke up from their nap. Like, I was dedicated to this. This was really important to me. I tried for as long as I could to nurse both of my children, but because I was a working mom, both of my children weaned themselves. But I tried to blend both things because I don't think women should have to choose. Anywhere that a mother can be, she can nurse. She has a right to be with her child nursing, and that's the law. That's the whole premise behind why I won my case, because anywhere a woman can be, she can be with her child, nursing her child. Take care.